Good afternoon. The Joint Committee on Education and Housing is now in order. Today's date is February the 10th. It's 2:00 p.m. and we are in several locations across the islands. I'm honored and privileged to be joined by Chair Nakamura today. And we have one bill on the agenda. First up is HB 2345 regarding HHFDC and teacher housing. First up on our testifiers list, a quick recess. Thank you so much for that. On one bill, HB 2345. First up on our testifiers list, we have the Department of Education supporting the intent, DOE. Present. Is Superintendent Hayashi present?
Sorry, Chair, I am here.
Okay.
This is just to clarify, Chair, HB 2345, right?
That is correct.
Thank you very much. Aloha, Chair Woodson, Chair Woodson, Chair Nakamura, Vice Chair Capella, Vice Chair Hashimoto, and members of the committee. Keith Hayashi, Interim Superintendent for the Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony supporting the intent of this measure and the development of affordable housing opportunities for teachers. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. We are available for questions. Mahalo.
Thank you for being here, Superintendent. Next, we have the Department of Budget and Finance providing comments. Not present. Next, we have HHFDC providing comments. Thank you. Next, we have HSTA providing testimony in support.
Aloha, chairs. Laverne Moore speaking on behalf of Osa Tui Jr., HSTA President. While HSTA supports this bill, we would ask that the following language be removed. On our second page of our testimony, a reduction of or waiver of school impact fees owed by the seller or lessor for any project of the developer. As we work together to improve both public education and expand affordable housing in Hawaii, we should not be supporting one at the expense of the other. School impact fees are critical sources of revenue for school infrastructure, and they seem to be regularly waived when considerations are given to affordable housing projects. We would urge the committee to find other financial reductions or waivers that don't impact public education. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. Next, we have Gentry Homes providing comments. Next, we have HGEA providing comments. Michael Press, individual, in support. We also have two other individuals, both providing testimony in support. Is anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this bill, HB 2345? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Vice Chair Nakamura, go ahead, please.
Yes, I have a question for Superintendent Hayashi.
Aloha, Chair.
Hi, thank you. I have a question about, do you need a part of this land to expand Holomua Elementary School?
I believe we do, Chair. You know, I have Randy Tanaka, Assistant Superintendent for the Office of Facility Operations on. AS Tanaka, can you please address Chair Nakamura's question?
Yes, aloha, Chair Nakamura. When I did an on-site inspection of that facility, one of the challenges they have is that the traffic along that street gets clogged in the pickup and drop off times. Part of the intention is that adjacent real estate, we would relieve that stress on the street with by using it, the adjacent property, we would build a better reception and pickup area. So that's one of the values of acquiring that real estate. It helps keep the neighborhood happy and the traffic flowing.
Right, and that's why I'm asking, because as the way the bill is written, it does not include school facilities or expansion, future expansion for the needs of the adjacent school. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yes, and just a note, Chair, there is plans for, with the growth of that area out in Kapolei, there are plans for 5 additional schools to relieve that pressure coming into that community. I believe it's 2 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and a high school, because at the current time, Campbell is severely stressed by just the student population. So it needs some relief.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, any other questions? I have a couple of questions if HHFDC is now present or if Budget and Finance is present. Neither one of them are present. Okay, may I just ask AS Tanaka, do you know what the assessed value, market value of the land is?
Sorry, Chair Woodson, I do not.
HHFDC is now present or if Budget and Finance is present. Technical difficulties. Can you repeat the answer, please? Okay, may I just ask AS Tanaka? Okay, we have some technical difficulties. Quick recess. Reconvening, apologies, AS Tanaka. My question was, do we have an idea as to what the market value of the parcel of land is?
Chair, I'm sorry, I don't have that estimated value. I see Debbie Looning. She may have a better idea as the landowner.
Okay. Ms. Looning, do you know the answer to that question if you're present? Not present, okay. All right, I have no other questions then if BNF or HHFDC is not here. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, quick recess for DM. Recess. Thank you, members. Reconvening for decision-making on HB 2345. Our first, members, we will be making some stylistic changes throughout the proposal. In terms of significant adjustments, members, first on page 1, section 1, part A, we will change the shall to a may. So the state may acquire fee simple interests in the land. Next, members, found on page 2, section 2, paragraph 5, lines 16 through 21. We will strike out where it says provided that the parcel solely be for affordable housing. We just going to allow for more flexibility as to how the land will be used. But again, the intention is for teacher affordable housing. Next, members, similarly so on page 3, sections 2, subsection 1, lines 6 through 9, we'll be striking out that language as well, again, to provide for more flexibility. On that same page, lines 10 through 13, members, we will be striking out all of that language, as there are several entities that will be administering this particular program. So we will strike out the admin rules specifically relating to HHFDC. Besides that, members, we will be defecting the dates to July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 2345. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Bellotti.
Aye.
Representative Clark. Excused. Representative Ganadin.
Aye.
Representative Gates.
Aye.
Representative Hashimoto. Excused. Representative Ono.
Aye.
Representative Quinlan. Excused. Representative Takayama.
Aye.
Representative Yamane. Excused. Representative Okimoto.
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you. For the Committee on Housing, same recommendation, approval with amendments as stated. Chair votes aye.
The chair's recommendation to pass HB 2345 with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair excuse. Representative Aquino.
Aye.
Representative Clark. Excuse. I votes aye. Representative Kitagawa.
Aye.
Representative Lopresti. Excuse. Representative Takumi.
Aye.
Representative McDermott. Excuse. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you for pitching for Vice Chair Hashimoto. Rep. Ilagan. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, we will be moving on. Committee on Education with several bills on our agenda. Next, we have HB 438, reduction of external curricula and testing. First up on our testifiers list, we have Department of Education providing comments. DOE.
Aloha Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the committee. I'm Terry Ushijima, Assistant Superintendent for the Office of Curriculum Instructional Design, testifying on behalf of Interim Superintendent Keith Hayashi and the Department of Education. The department stands on its written testimony providing comments on this measure. The department is dedicated to providing high-quality curricula instruction for its students and acknowledges that this expertise can sometimes require contracting out to other entities. The department is making a concerted effort to reduce the number of those contracts, but wants to point out that contracts can be a means to more efficiently use the department's resources. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. We are available for questions.
Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have the Democratic Party Education Caucus providing testimony and support. Next, we have HSTA providing testimony in support.
Laverne Moore, speaking on behalf of President Osatui Jr., we support the intent of this bill. We believe strongly that our ethnic and social economically diverse public school population, which requires curriculum and learning materials be reflective of our diversity. Instead of hiring contractors on the mainland, HSD strongly believes that HIDOE should be using sources right here on our Hawaii shores. Who better to provide these tools and resources for our classrooms than local teachers and education experts? We also believe this strongly for the testing department. So to provide high quality education by developing and implementing a curriculum that reflects our unique diversity in Hawaii, the HSTA asks this committee to support this bill. Mahalo.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your testimony. We also have testimony from two individuals, both providing testimony and support. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this bill? HB 438. Members, any questions? Okay, Vice Chair Capella.
For the DOE,
Yes, Vice Chair.
thank you. So a lot of studies have shown that standardized testing correlates far more heavily with socioeconomic status than student learning. While I understand that there are some tests that may be helpful, like screening tests for reading and mathematics that are often given at the very beginning of the school year, has the DOE done anything recently to reduce the number of standardized tests being given to students to replace standardized tests that are with our more authentic assessments? Things like maybe the Every Student Succeeds Act allows.
Yes, Vice Chair, the assessment section, they have been working on innovative assessments in the area of standards in terms of those summative statewide assessments. So we did apply for the Innovative Assessment Authority, Demonstration Authority I believe it was 2 years ago. Our proposal wasn't accepted at that time, but then we did put in another request to receive a grant to work on this further. So we are making efforts, and we did have a stakeholder group when we initiated that project that included many community members, as well as our HSTA partners and some community educational organizations, and of course our own administrators and teachers. So we are looking into that as we know how important it is to look at improving things continuously and making things as relevant as possible. But we do know that the state tests, that's one piece of information, and I think it's it's also an important one because it gives us a point in time where we can see across the state, and that's what helps us address equity issues and provide assistance where it is most needed. So thank you for your question.
Can I ask a quick follow-up?
Go ahead.
Also for the DOE, does the department have a list of current external contracts that is available for public review? And if you do, would you be able to possibly give committee members that same list? I know you folks have done this in the past.
I'm thinking we do. I'm just hesitating because I'm not the procurement office, and but I believe if we did it in the past, we will look into it and we will give you a response.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Members, any other questions? Quick question for DOE again. Thank you for your answers to those particular inquiries. I want to circle back to that first question. And so I concur that some standardized tests are useful. Definitely do not concur that we need to over test. I think there's a growing zeitgeist to that sentiment as well. You spoke of some of the innovations that you're looking at into the future. Do you have any solid timelines as to when the department is going to go in the direction of looking at some of these alternative means of measurements?
I think, and In my previous position, my other role as the branch director for the assessment and accountability section prior to doing this interim position, there is a timeline. I don't have it memorized, but I think it's over, I want to say a 3 to 5 year period where we would put a plan in place and reapply for a possible opportunity to implement some type of innovative assessment pilot probably at first and figure out how to scale it up to a larger number of students.
Is there rationale behind why that would take 3 to 5 years?
I think with any statewide assessments, there's psychometrics involved, and especially with the innovative demonstration authority types of assessments, because it's ideas that have not yet been proven, it's necessary to look at the technical aspects to ensure that it's measuring what it should be and that it can provide the type of information that would be valid and reliable.
Thank you. Can you define psychometric for the edification of the public?
So they looked at the different aspects of the test, and they look at the test samples or the products, in the, I guess, case of innovative assessments. I think it would depend on what type of data they would collect, and they would have to run, I'm not a psychometrician myself, but we work in partnership with them, and they would run different statistical types of analysis to determine the reliability and validity of those results.
Okay, thank you so much. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the next bill, we have HB 1942, DOE and bus fares. First up, we have DOE providing comments.
Hello, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the committee. Randy Tanaka, Assistant Superintendent for Facilities and Operations. Testifying on behalf of Superintendent Hayashi and the department. We stand by our written testimony and comment on this measure that could create some challenges for us from a financial standpoint, but understand the opportunity. We cannot yet balance, or we don't have enough information yet to see whether we would have revenue erosion or more people riding the bus because we have a more financially acceptable range of cost for folks. So that's the thing we have to balance. I will tell you that the revenues generated from this goes towards paying for other parts of our operation, bus passes, things of that nature. So a slide in revenue could represent a challenge for us on the financial side, but that is not to say that we would get more people riding at the discounted fee. The other challenge, the challenge we face now is not so much, it's bus drivers. And if we get this increase, how do we make that accommodation for the greater ridership? So that's kind of where we are in comments. So thank you very much. Aloha.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we have Budget and Finance providing comments. We have individual testimony from Emily Evans in opposition because she says it does not go far enough. I see Emily here. Ms. Evans here. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. I am testifying in opposition of House Bill 1942 on the grounds that it does not go far enough to help families who are already struggling financially. In all other 49 states, student transportation to public schools is free for families. Please consider aligning Hawaii with this national standard and providing student transportation for free. A third-tier pricing structure provides Hawaii families with minimal financial relief while imposing an increased workload on school staff who are already overworked. Respectfully, please consider the following alternatives. Align Hawaii with the rest of the nation and make student transportation free to eligible students attending DOE public schools. The first step would be to ask the DOE how much revenue they make from bus pass fares and what they do with those funds. With that information, please evaluate and consider appropriating DOE annual reoccurring funding instead, so that Hawaii families will have access to free student transportation for all of Hawaii's public schools. Or revise the bill to state that students who qualify for reduced meals qualify for a free bus pass. Mahalo for the opportunity to provide testimony on this measure.
Thank you so much, Ms. Evans, for your testimony. We also have testimony from 4 individuals, 1 in opposition, 1 in support, 2 in support, 1 in opposition, 1 comment. Is there anyone else here wishing to provide testimony on this bill? HB 1942. Seeing none,
Excuse
members,
me.
are there any questions?
Excuse me, Rep. Woodson, just from a disclosure standpoint, Ms. Evans works for the Department of Education in the Transportation Unit. So just as a matter of disclosure.
Thank you. And she's
Thank you.
qualified. She's testifying as an individual, though, however.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Duly noted. Thank you, A.S. Tanaka. Okay, members, are there any questions? Okay, Vice Chair.
My question is for A.S. Tanaka.
Yes, Rep. Capella.
Thank you so much. I fully support any efforts that our state is taking to make service cheaper for students. I definitely agree with Ms. Evans and completely think that it should be free. My question is that since this bill applies to economically disadvantaged students and therefore it would apply most heavily to Title I schools, can you comment on the severity of bus driver shortages, specifically for Title I schools like my own? I mean, what's the point of doing something like this if we can't get students to school because there are no buses to get them there?
And thank you very much, Rep. Capella. Excellent question. First and foremost, it's not the failure of buses, but failure of bus drivers. And I have commented in the past that this is caused by, this whole COVID period forced drivers to find other means of sustaining their income. And so we lost in that direction. We had some people retire. And that pool, obviously in many corners, our labor pool is pretty tight. So from what my team has told me, we must by law service the SPED students first. That we cannot not serve that. And then we backfill. And then we look at routes, lengths of routes, the more challenged communities. And then we back into those areas. Then we look at the radius of which people are coming from. Further out, that's where we need to provide that transportation. This unit is about $160-some million unit. So there's, in my view of the world, there's no such thing as free. There's cost to be applied to this, and how we balance that is part of the things that we have to do. I can't give you we add and pull routes off based upon the morning call. I mean, somebody doesn't show up to work and now we're scrambling, but that's what we've been living with the last 2 years.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, Tanaka. Members, any other questions? I have a question for Emily Evans. She's still here. Thank you, Ms. Evans, for being here. And we've spoken offline about various topics regarding transportation. So I know that you're knowledgeable about the issue. And so your testimony, you indicate that the remaining states offer transportation for public schools at no cost. Is that for all students, or is it just for those that qualify for free and reduced lunch?
It is for all students. that go to public schools in the States. There are pockets of districts throughout the country that do it like we do with private contractors where there is a small fee, but the majority of districts in the nation, if you attend a public school in your state, student transportation is at no cost. Obviously, their funding is a bit different. They pay their property taxes go towards their education, which provides that service. Obviously, we're funded a little bit differently. So they don't have that same pricing structure.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, quick question for AS Tanaka.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you again for being here. And so your testimony indicates that you believe the proposal as it's written, it will cause additional stress operationally to administer this type of program. What if we take the recommended adjustment and collapse the tier back to 2, so 2 tiers instead of 3, and say that if a student qualifies for free or reduced lunch, they shall receive bus service for free? Would that help with your administrative concerns?
I think there is some value there. We just don't know at this point in time the revenue drop. That's the key. Because that, like I said, some of that revenue goes to offset bus passes and other things. We would have to give you a better evaluation of our revenue source, what that Title I free lunch impact means. Is it reaching into the full fare program? I don't think so. My gut reaction is because we have provided services for the Title I situations, its financial impact may be less, but still it's seats on the bus, whether we have seats on the bus for that larger population. So in all sincerity, I don't have enough good data to provide that economic model on what would happen.
Okay, thank you for that. And if it's possible, if we can get some data on the potential cost impacts, and of course, that's more of a question for the Committee on Finance, but it's still useful to know, what would be the impact to the department. Thank you, sir. Remember, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the next bill, HB 2248 with regards to health safety standards and private schools. First up on our testifiers list we have is Hawaii Catholic Schools, providing testimony in support with a recommended proposed change. HCS here? Not present. Next we have HAIS, providing testimony in support.
Hello, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the committee. My name is Phil Bossert, and I'm the Executive Director of the Hawaii Association of Independent Schools. I will stand on my testimony in strong support of this bill, and we do gladly accept the proposed amendment from the Hawaii Catholic Schools. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much. That was my question. Okay. Next, we have an individual providing testimony in support. Is there anyone else here wishing to provide testimony on this bill, HB 2248? Okay, seeing none, members, are there any questions? So, Mr. Bossert, you answered my question, so we will move on. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, next, members, we have HB 2456 with regards to DOE and safety personnel. First up on our list, we have the Department of Education providing testimony with comments.
Hello, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, members of the committee, Randy Tanaka, Office of Facilities and Operations. On behalf of Superintendent Hayashi and the Department of Education, we stand by our written testimony. Student safety is always a #1 priority for us. While we have security staff assigned in many of the middle and high schools, there is no security assigned to our elementary schools. Therefore, this measure would require significant funding and salaries, as grants are not a reliable source of funds. Thank you for your time. Stand by for questions. Aloha.
Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have BNF providing comments. BNF is not present. Next, we have HSTA in opposition.
Aloha, Laverne Moore speaking on behalf of Osa Tui Jr., President of HSTA. We oppose House Bill 2456. We do not need guards, off-duty police officers, or the like at our schools. Doing so doesn't necessarily keep our keiki safe and diverts otherwise much-needed financial resources. To put a stop to the school-to-prison pipeline, we need more resources for our educators, support staff, supplies, infrastructure, more counselors. Our school needs more focus on prevention, not enforcement. The American School Counselor Association recommends a counselor to student ratio 1 to 250. At my school, it's 1 to 366. That is the kind of support we need for our students. In short, our schools need more qualified teachers, more school psychologists, and or social workers. We also need a registered nurse on each campus and wraparound services and resources for our keiki, not more security. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you so much for being here. We have individual testimony from 2 people, one in support, the other in opposition. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Quick question for DOE. Is Tanaka still here?
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you,
Chair.
Tanaka. And so your testimony indicated that the type of security, for lack of a better verbiage, is different depending upon the community. As an example, I know that for some complexes, they have resource officers that float between different schools. I'm wondering if you think that in terms of police officer presence on campus, if that has had a positive impact on students or a negative impact on students. Just an open-ended question. And I have a second part to the question, but if you can answer the first part.
When I was at the University of Hawaii Community Colleges, there was an advocacy of police present on campuses, and that varies across the nation. And it's a tough call. I mean, there's some form of intimidation when an officer is walking around in that situation. Yet it can provide a supportive role. And it depends exactly what you said on the community, because not all communities welcome police enforcement and have an appreciation of what law enforcement is intended to do. So it's a kind of answer and a non-answer for you. I can't say we should have police officers, uniformed officers on campus, because it all varies depending on the community, and what those impressions are made at the school will vary across the board.
All right, thank you so much for that. First, I should say that we appreciate all of our officers. I was just asking the question to see what your interpretation was, what your assessment was. I know for the schools that I have visited and there's police officers there, there's a very positive relationship between the students and the officers. So just inquiring about that. As a second part to that question, with regards to those resource officers that are organized and that they had to be available at various schools, what is the response time for an officer that is not presently at the school in terms of how long it takes them if they had to respond to an emergency situation?
Chair, I don't have that numbers. Once again, when I was at community college, that blue light system that they have, we used to test on-campus response. And we would hit that light and see how quickly our on-campus security, and overall it was pretty good. But that is highly dependent on all the other security things they got to do. HPD response to campus, I can't give you a 5-minute, 10-minute run, but based on my community college experience, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. They respond to schools quickly for obvious reasons.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Members, are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, we're going to go on to the next bill, HB 2457, with regards to the Department of Education and Student Service Areas. We have DOE, OSID providing comments.
Aloha Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, members of the committee. Keith Hayashi, Interim Superintendent, testifying on behalf of the Department of Education. The department stands on its testimony, providing comments, and looks forward to further dialogue with the legislature on its progress in regards to schools on a multi-track schedule. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. We're available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have the Attorney General providing comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the committee, Deputy Attorney General Ann Horiuchi testifying on behalf of the department. As stated in our testimony, the department is concerned that the bill as currently written could be construed as prohibiting the Department of Education from placing a student at a school outside of the student service area, even if an individualized education program team has determined that such placement is appropriate. So the department has suggested that either the committee hold the bill, or we request that you consider the amendment that we provided in our testimony, which we think would provide clarity that the prohibition doesn't apply to IEP team determinations. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'll be on standby if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we have individual testimony and support. That's all I have on my testifiers list. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony for this bill? Okay, seeing none. Members, are there any questions? No questions, seeing none. Okay, moving on to the next bill. HB 1994 with regards to the Department of Education and planting programs. First up on our list, we have Department of Education providing comments.
Hello, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella. Thank you very much. Randy Tanaka, Department of Education, on behalf of Superintendent Hayashi and the department. We stand by our testimony. We always think means to mitigate climate change and begin to move in the direction that we should be is a good thing. So we support that effort and we do it on a regular basis. We just need to do it with greater frequency. So we are moving in that direction. Aloha, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have BNF, Director Harai providing comments. Next, we have Climate Protectors Hawaii providing testimony and support. We have Hawaii Farm to School Hawaii providing testimony and support.
Yes, aloha mai kako, Lydie Bernal, Hawaii Farm to School Hui Coordinator with Hawaii Public Health Institute. We stand on our written testimony in support. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have Malama Kauai providing testimony and support. Megan Fox is here. Nope. Next, we have Oahu Farm to School Network providing testimony and support. And we have 3 individuals all providing testimony and support. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this bill, HB 1994? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? I have a quick question for Hawaii Farm to School.
Aloha, Chair.
Aloha, thank you for being here. Can you just expand upon some of the experiences that you have seen in terms of instruction that happened at school, the blending of various disciplines, and how you believe that has impacted students and student learning?
Thank you very much for your question. I think it actually relates to some of the earlier conversation here regarding alternative assessment, right? And ways to measure student well-being. There are many, many studies that show the increased exposure to nature, increase in experiential learning are highly beneficial not only for academic achievement, but also student engagement. So decreasing absenteeism, and social emotional benefits. And then when it comes to farm to school, it's also relating to increasing student preference for fresh fruits and vegetables. So schools that have trees on campuses, such as ulu or tangerines and oranges, right? Students are this is increasing their access to fresh fruits and vegetables. It's increasing their palate for trying these types of foods. So all around, trees are a very important part of providing experiential learning for students. And we also know, because of data like the Safety and Wellness Survey that the Department of Education and Health administer to measure the wellness guidelines, that school gardens, which include trees, which include composting, they're part of how students are valuing alternative education spaces, right? A garden is a classroom outdoors. And we see that number increasing annually. So prior to COVID, it was up to 85% of schools having school gardens. And once again, native plants, fruit tree orchards, these are all part of the vision for school gardens, school farms, agriculture education. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you so much. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the next bill. Next, we have HB 1562 with regards to ELB membership, and P20 first on our list, University of Hawaii, providing testimony and support. Next, we have Eoel providing comments.
Aloha Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the Education Committee. My name is Kamehameha Schools, I'm Director of the Executive Office of Early Learning. EOEL stands on its written testimony. In addition, I wish to extend apologies on behalf of the Early Learning Board. Although written testimony was submitted, Chair Peters is unable to attend today's hearing as ELB is holding its monthly meeting this afternoon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Director. Thank you for being here. Next, we have DLE providing testimony and support.
Aloha Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, members of the committee, Terry Ushijima, Interim Assistant Superintendent of the Office of Curriculum Instructional Design, testifying on behalf of Superintendent Keith Hayashi and the Department of Education. The department stands on its testimony in support of increasing the connections between early learning through college and having the perspective of Hawaii P20 would be beneficial. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. We are available for questions.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Next, we have ELB providing comments. Chair Peters is not present. Next, we have Rainbow Family 808 providing testimony and support. Lastly, on my list, we have an individual providing testimony and support. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this bill? Seeing none, members, is there any questions? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go to the next bill, HB 2267, AC and Schools. First on our testifiers list, we have Department of Education providing testimony and support.
Hello, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, members of the committee. Once again, Randy Tanaka, Office of Facilities and Operations, on behalf of Superintendent Hayashi and the DOE, Department of Education. We stand on our written testimony and in support of this additional funding. You should know that we have 3,000 classrooms that have sufficient electrical capacity where we can install window units, with an estimated cost of about $24 million for installation. And you should know that there is added cost to the operations of nearly $5 million annually because of increased electrical usage. There would be a remaining 2,000 classrooms where electrical upgrades would have to be done in order to fulfill the full complement of classrooms through the state. Thank you for your time. Available for questions.
Thank you, AS Tanaka. Next, we have BNF, Director Harai, providing comments. Next, we have the Democratic Party of Hawaii Education Caucus providing testimony and support. We have HSTA providing testimony and support.
Aloha, Laverne Moore, speaking on behalf of President Osa Tui Jr. HSD supports any and all complexes to have funds appropriated to install air conditioning in their schools. We ask that you also consider more air purification measures too during this pandemic time. Schools should be cool and make our classrooms suitable for learning and healthy, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. We have individual testimony from 4 people, all providing testimony and support. Is anyone here wishing to provide testimony on this bill, HB 2267, AC in schools? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Vice Chair Capella.
For AS Tanaka, DOE.
Yes, Vice Chair.
Hi. How many schools are currently undergoing the electrical capacity, I guess, evaluations? So in your testimony, you talked. Oh, and then
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. In your testimony, you talked about the 3,000 classrooms that have the capacity to install AC right now. Do any of those remaining 2,000 classrooms, are they that don't have AC capacity currently? Are they undergoing any of the electrical evaluations or upgrades at this present time?
Yes, we had started an electrical capacity study a while ago. I think we're down to a remaining 700 or 800 rooms. So we're getting close near the end. Was a substantial undertaking for system-wide, but I think we've been doing this for a while. My guys tell me we got about a little over 700 to go to complete the electrical capacity study.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank
Chair.
you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Members, any other questions? Quick question for DOE. Thank you, AS Tanaka, for being here. And so you just articulated that you believe that with the addition of potential ACs across the state, that would increase operational costs by the magnitude of $5 million. We know that in recent past, the department has leveraged new technology, specifically defined as AC units incorporating closed circuitry system, battery technology, and solar systems. If the department were to continue to look at that type of solution, would that then reduce that $5 million figure? I assume that it would, but I want to make sure.
You're correct. Your assumption is correct. A couple things we've learned from the previous installs, both battery and rooftop on PV. My team tells me it's better for us to feed the grid and draw down from the grid. The beauty with PV for the DOE is in the periods that we're generating, it's great for the public. During the evening times, we're not users of electricity because our schools are closed. So we the value is highly prized, so to speak. But we have looked at batteries. We have not had great success with the batteries. Some of the lifespan of the batteries are not achieving what we had hoped for. So that's why my team has come back and says, just let's feed back to the grid, feedback to the grid. And that's in their estimation is the best way to go. We continue to also install LEDs to reduce overall consumption, which will help us reduce our energy use through AC. So it's a tranche of different things that we put on the table to reduce our energy consumption.
Okay, thank you for that. And even within specifically talking about battery technology, that is getting increasingly better year over year. With the installations that have happened, how many years ago were those installations that had battery technology?
I think about 4 years ago, and absolutely what you said about improved technology. It's all point in time, right? Because everything will get better. We'll get better productivity out of the panels and all of the above. So as we move forward, we're not going to get beat up as bad because our performance will improve and reduction in other areas. So your comment is right on. As we move forward, the technology will get better. Our performance will get better.
Okay, thank you so much for your responses. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the next bill, HB 1939, regarding EOEL and increased operational capacity. First up we have is EOEL providing testimony and support.
Aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the Education Committee. I'm Colleen Momohara, Interim Director of the Executive Office on Early Learning. EOL stands on its testimony supporting the intent of this bill, and we appreciate the committee's consideration for the capacity of the office. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Director. Next, we have Board Chair Peters providing testimony and support. I believe it's actually supporting comments. Next, we have Director Harai providing testimony, offering comments. We have Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks providing testimony and support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. Kathleen Miller with HCAN Speaks, who have our testimony and support. We also just want to reiterate how critically important the Office of EOEL is, and that it's necessary that they be resourced so that they can meet their statutory obligations. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We also have testimony from two individuals, one in support, the other in opposition. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony? HB 1939. See none, members, any questions? See none, moving on to the next bill, HB 1940, with regards to a subsidy program for child care workers. First on our list, we have EOEL providing testimony and support.
Aloha again, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the Education Committee. I'm here to stand on EOEL's testimony in support of the intent of this bill. And we would like to, though, clarify that there is parity in public funded pre-kindergarten programs for EOEL and charters, but compensation issues are complicated and exacerbated because for the workforce in the private sector from the community-based programs, pay parity does not exist. We also wish to reiterate that the appropriating of funds to the Early Learning Special Fund would be what we would ask for, rather than to the Hawaii Early Childhood Educator Special Fund. That would benefit the Early Childhood Stipend Program. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Director. Thank you for being here. Next, we have Chair Peters providing testimony and support. BNF providing comments. Hawaii State Commission on the Status of Women providing testimony and support. Rainbow Family 808 providing testimony and support. AAUW of Hawaii providing testimony and support. Action Network Speaks, testimony and support.
Hello again. Thank you so much for hearing this measure. I obviously stand on my testimony in strong support. I just wanted to highlight a couple of items with this specific bill. The purpose behind this measure is to help retain our current workforce and recruit additional folks into early care and learning. We've been seeing a dramatic loss in our childcare workers and our early care and learning professionals even before the pandemic, but the pandemic has definitely made it worse. Part of the reason that we've been seeing this trend over time is the fact that compensation is an ongoing issue. A compensation program like the one that is proposed in the bill is something that other states are already doing. And in fact, Washington, D.C. just passed a measure recently to give child care workers between $10,000 and $14,000 as a one-time bonus, with the promise to increase their wages over time. We also want to make sure that we are recruiting folks into our early care and learning workforce as well. And that's why we want to make sure that the education stipend program has funding. When the measure was passed last year, there was an appropriation. So we just want to make sure that it's has funding so folks can take available of the program. And we support the proposed amendments by EOEL to make sure that the funding is distributed in the necessary way. So thank you again for hearing the measure. We hope that it passes out. We feel like this is, we're in a little bit of a desperate situation. So now's the time to do it to support children, working families, and the early childhood educators. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have early childhood action strategies providing testimony and support. Next, we have Environment Me Too services providing testimony and support. Aloha United Way providing testimony and support. We have about a dozen individuals all providing testimony and support. We also have Maui County Early Childhood Resource Center providing testimony and support. Anyone wishing to provide testimony on this bill? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Oh, please go ahead. DHS. Sorry.
Yes, sorry, Chair. Yeah. Scott Nakasone, Department of Human Services. Department stands on its written testimony, providing comments, and I'm here to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this bill? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? I have a quick question for Action Network Speaks.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. You mentioned that there are other jurisdictions that are looking at this issue. They're aggressively pursuing strategies. Per the example that you gave, DC, how do they pay their child care workers the $10,000 to $14,000 bump?
I believe that they passed a revenue measure that would tax capital gains.
Tax capital gains. Okay, thank you so much. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing that, moving on to the next bill, HB 1999. This is just preschool open doors appropriation. First up on our list, we have DHS providing testimony and support.
Yes. Hello again, Chair. Scott Nakasone, Department of Human Services. We stand on our written testimony, providing support, and I'm here to help answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. ENF providing comments. Eoel providing testimony and support.
Aloha, Chair, the members of the committee, and Vice Chair Capella as well. Executive Office on Early Learning stands on its written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have Rainbow Family 808 providing testimony and support. Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks providing testimony and support.
Thanks again. I think this measure is incredibly important. I did want to highlight, though, that because of the funding that was cut last year for preschool open doors, there's actually a risk of the program running out of funding this year. And so in our testimony, we suggested amendments that the measure, the effective date be changed to upon approval, and that an emergency appropriation is made to the funding so that the families that are currently receiving this subsidy don't lose out on it.
Thank you for that. Next, we have Hsta Coalition providing testimony and support.
Aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the committee. My name is Shari Nakamura, Director of Hsta Coalition. We support HB 1999. Preschool Open Doors is an effective state program that allows economically disadvantaged families access to quality early learning opportunities. We know that there are federal and county subsidies available for families, as well as philanthropic scholarships that allow access to early learning. Our hope is that our state is tracking all of these funding mechanisms so that we can optimize them to the fullest extent. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you for being here. We have individual testimony and support. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this bill? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Majority Leader Bly.
This is for DHS. Has the department sent down an EA based upon what HCAN just testified to?
The department is strategizing, and that is one of the options that we are looking at. We are also looking at possibility of CSREF funds as well too, as well as also reprioritizing some of our existing appropriations as well too.
Okay, I just understand that we've come to this place before where there's been mix-ups with EAs, so if we can catch this earlier rather than later, that would be helpful. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, sir.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Thank you, DHS. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the next bill, SFA preschools and appropriations, another bill. First up we have is Ed Sniffen, SFA. This is School Facilities Agency still here. Okay, next we have Eoel providing testimony and support.
Chair Woodson and Chair Capella, members of the committee, Eoel stands on its written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. SFA, Mr. Oshima.
Thank you, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members. SFA stands on its free file testimony. We are in the process of becoming organized, setting out rules and regs, etc. And as we move forward, there are many, many worthy projects for new facilities, preschool facilities being among them. And we just seek some flexibility as we move forward and implement. And that is the intent of our testimony.
Thank you so much for being here. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Next, we have BNF providing testimony, offering comments. Rainbow Coalition, Rainbow Family 808 providing testimony support. We have Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks providing testimony and support. HSTA providing testimony and support.
Aloha, Laverne Moore speaking on behalf of President Osatui Jr. We know well the importance of early learning and that it begins in preschool. High quality early education represents one of the best investments we can make for our collective future, especially those of our young children. We believe that it would be great to have a free public preschool in every school. We need to expand free public preschool. Now is the time to move quickly ahead. Families across Hawaii cannot wait any longer for free public preschool for their children. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. We have Kamehameha Schools providing testimony and support.
E nā luna ho'omalu Woodson, a me nā Kamura, nā hope luna ho'omalu Kapela, a me Hashimoto, a me nā lala o kia mo komike elua, ka hale o nā luna makainana, aloha kākou. Kamehameha Schools Vice President, Ki'i alo, Wai Ale Sarsona, my Vice President, who oversees our early learning services and charter school support, is not able to be here this afternoon. So I'll be providing oral testimony on behalf of our organization. Kamehameha Schools support HB 2000. The enactment of Act 46 was a pivotal step forward, and we must remain steadfast in our commitment to this future in Hawaii. Since the start of the pandemic, Hawaii has lost over 3,600 seats, at least 6 preschools, and many more family child care providers. Our keiki cannot afford to lose anymore. Facility space and costs continue to be a major hurdle to expanding access to unserved 3- and 4-year-old keiki across Hawaii. In the Hawaii Early Learning Needs Assessment of 2017, center-based program directors listed the lack of space or appropriate facilities as the most common barrier to increasing the number of seats in their classroom. Investing in the construction of preschool facilities is the next big step toward ensuring the future we all envision and the future that our keiki deserve. A'ohe ulu e loa ai ka pokole o kalou. There is no success without preparation. Please advance this measure. Mahalo.
Thank you so much for being here. Nice background too, by the way. Next, we have Hsta Coalition providing testimony and support.
Yes, aloha, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the committee. Sherry Nakamura again, Director of Hsta Coalition. We support HB 2000. We believe that expansion in physical early learning facilities is needed to increase access to quality early learning opportunities, and that the School Facilities Agency is the entity that can execute most expediently. We look forward to more detail and discussion about this bill, but we would like to offer a comment. Since resources are limited, we urge the state to expand in a way that is strategic, which means understanding what families and communities want in early learning opportunities, the future growth of our communities, and making sure that we do not cannibalize the good quality programs that are already existing. We hope that there is coordination between the SFA and the applicable state agencies for effective execution. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you so much for being here. We have individual testimony from one person providing testimony in support. Is there anyone else wishing to provide testimony on this bill? Seeing none, members, any questions? Question for SFA. Mr. Oshima still here? Thank you so much for being here. And so, as you mentioned, SFA is still getting stood up. Many opportunities with this new agency. I'm wondering if you're seeing any distinction between potential opportunities as it specifically relates to standing up or offering preschools at different sites compared to other types of operations that you will be involved in the future.
I think there's a linkage. So as we recently visited some school sites, teacher housing is a high need in certain areas. Community meeting spaces are high need in certain areas, and they're all linked. And so I see early learning opportunities to also be linked as we look at facilities to serve those other needs. We don't want to be focused only on single use kinds of facilities, to make the best use of our state resources, lands, and to really have collaboration among all the stakeholders in the education and community space.
Okay, thank you so much. Members, any other questions? Hey, Coalition, if you're still here.
Yes.
Hi, thank you for being here. You mentioned that we need to be intentional with how we go about expanding these early learning opportunities across the state, making sure that geographically we are offering to those that are in most need first and then expand thereafter. Can you share some of your thoughts on how you think it's best that we do that?
Well, I think a community-based approach is appropriate because, as we know, across the islands, we have different communities and we do have a mixed delivery system. So I think it's important for, I think it is the state agencies to be able to collect that information, gather that data, so that in each respective area, we know how to optimize what the demands are for the community. And I think there is information out there. It's just a matter of how it's being collected and interpreted and analyzed. I would hope that, you know, the information could be would be transparent so that the stakeholders would understand what the agencies are trying to do, because I think we do need the buy-in of the communities. And of course, we want to serve our communities well.
Okay, thank you so much. Members, any other questions on HB 2000? Seeing none, moving on to the next bill, we have HB 1834 HD1 with regards to Strong Students Grant Program within the DOE. First up, we have DOE providing comments. OSID, providing comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Woodson, Vice Chair Capella, and members of the committee. Terry Ushijima here, testifying on behalf of Interim Superintendent Keith Hayashi. The Hawaii State Department of Education supports the intent of HB 1834 HD1 and respectfully provides comments in our testimony. The eligible education expenses defined are duplicative of expenses already covered by the department through federal education grants. The Strong Student Grant Program would divert a significant amount of resources that could otherwise be equitably allocated by the department for all students. Thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony on HB 1834 HD1.
Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have BNF providing comments. Hawaii Kids Can in support.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. Hawaii Kids Can strongly supports HB 1834 HD1. As our families continue to struggle, we cannot allow kids to pay the price. While we wish families could get all of the personalized support they need from their schools, common sense tells us this simply isn't reality. Instead, families are desperate for any support. I wanted to clarify how this program could work given our initial pilot on Lanai. Online platforms like ClassWallet are well positioned to serve as a digital wallet for families and have been used to administer millions of dollars for similar programs in other states. In our pilot, families have access to 30+ quality education vendors within the system, and they use their credits to find the support that best fits their needs. This has included school supplies, supplemental learning materials, and paying for tutoring services. You can read some parent quotes in our written testimony, but it's clear that these families have been incredibly grateful. We've also heard from high school counselors that the grant program would be helpful for kids who can't afford SAT, ACT, and AP exam costs and retakes. I know there are many kids and families who deserve and need support. While significant funding is appreciated, as a pilot, we do not believe the cost for the program at this time needs to match the $79 million in the DOE's testimony. However, the DOE could use its federal ESSER stimulus funds for this purpose to address learning loss. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for being here. We have individual testimony, both in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Seeing none, members, are there any questions? Vice Chair Capella.
I have a question for the DOE.
Yes, Vice Chair.
Hi, does the DOE have the ability to track the expenditures that would be made through the grant program envisioned by this proposal? And would families be required to consult with the department to ensure that they're purchasing relevant, quality, culturally sensitive educational programs, not things that are like a SELIS, for example?
We would have to look into this if it were a program that we would be administering. I think there would be a lot of details that we would have to work through. We would have to partner with different offices in our department. And I think, it's the details, I think, that we would have to make sure are tight, and also looking at the equity piece, to administer a program like this that's limited, which families do have access. And if it's a first come, first serve, that's not always the best way to serve those who are most in need. We know that our schools already work with partners to try to provide for students who have social economic needs. There's often, I remember as an administrators, there's religious organizations that might donate backpacks to students that we distribute at the beginning of the school year. So we look at different ways to meet the needs for our ACT tests. We do provide the opportunity for all our students to be able to take it, which wasn't true several years ago, because we recognize that it's not always easy for some of our students to have access to those opportunities. So there's various ways the schools address meeting the needs of those who aren't able to pay for some of the basic needs.
Thank you. Chair, I have a follow-up question.
Go ahead.
For actually for Mr. Miyashiro.
Hi.
Hi. So in the list of eligible expenses, this bill talks about educational curricula and this undefined category of supplemental education services, which I would assume would be provided through private educational companies. Your testimony talks specifically about this bill being modeled after a program on Lanai, through which a church actually received a microgrant to hire educators from a public school, which, if done through this proposal, may violate the establishment clause and our own state's constitution. Our state constitution's prohibition on allocating public funds for private education programs. Can you comment on whether or not you have investigated those legal or accountability concerns?
Thank you so much for the question, Vice Chair. From what we've seen, it hasn't been an issue so far, especially because, in the case for those kinds of services, it's already baked into the platform itself. And so families really do have the option to decide, what makes the most sense for their needs. To the question about tracking, we are able to track and account for every dollar that's spent within the program, and everything is approved beforehand. So again, anything that's inappropriate or illegal simply would not be approved within the program. So that's something, again, I would defer to the department in terms of how they want to administer that. But again, there's no need for anything that isn't proper to actually be approved in the program.
Okay, this program would be publicly funded, and that's something that using public money for private education programs is not something that's allowable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Members, any other questions? Quick question for Hawaii Kids Can.
Hi, Chair.
I thank you. And so the department indicated on some of the ways in which they support families in need. Can you explain how your program on Lanai, how it complemented some of those efforts the DOE already has?
Absolutely. And certainly for our rural communities where maybe there isn't a plethora of community partners, having the opportunity to, for example, pay and then have shipped various learning supplies and books so that kids can address learning loss at home, especially for kids who are stuck at home during quarantines and isolation, has certainly been very helpful. And we think it's, certainly within precedent for what our system does pretty regularly. And we work with one of the things that's great about Hawaii's education system is that we have a wide range of community partners who do chip in to support on a supplemental basis, whether it's an after school all-stars or another program on campus. So again, we would not think it's appropriate for families to use these kinds of funds for tuition, for private school or anything like that. But for supplemental community partners, I think that's certainly in line with what we see already in our system.
All right, thank you so much. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, quick recess. Thank you, members, for reconvening for decision-making on several bills. First up, for HB 438 with regards to the reduction of external curricula and testing products. Members would like to move this with a HD1, changing the reporting date to December 31st, 2023. Also defecting the date to July 1st, 2050. Technical non-substantive changes. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Voting on House Bill 438, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Belatti.
Aye.
Representative Clark. Excused. Representative Ganadin.
Aye.
Representative Gates.
Aye.
Representative Hashimoto.
Aye.
Representative Ono.
Aye.
Representative Quinlan.
Aye.
Representative Takayama.
Aye.
Representative Yamane.
Aye.
Representative Okimoto.
With reservations, please.
Reservations Okimoto. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. I appreciate it. Next, moving to HB 1942, DOE and student bus fares. Members, to address the DOE's concerns with regards to potential additional workloads, and also given some of the other testimony, we'd like to amend this bill saying that if you qualify for free or reduced lunch, then you shall qualify for a free school bus pass. Besides that, defecting the date to July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Voting on House Bill 1942, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 2248, health and safety standards, and private schools would like to accept Hawaii Catholic Charities' recommendation to add them to one of the agencies that oversights this type of activity. And that's found on page 2, lines 6 through 8. Besides that, defecting the date to July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Voting on House Bill 2248, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Clark. Members, are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 2456, DOE and safety personnel. Members, on page 3, we'll add school safety and security officers and school security attendants per some of the recommendations. Defecting the date to July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 2456, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Clark. Are there any reservations?
Reservations.
Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Next, we have HB 2457, DOE and student service areas. Members, the department has indicated that they are transitioning away from tiered scheduling in the Mililani and Kapolei area. So therefore, we will defer this bill. Also want to indicate that there's concerns with regards to potential conflict with IDEA, and we cannot be out of conflict with that federal law. So we will defer. Next, moving on to HB 1994, DOE and planting curriculum. Members, on page 3, section 2, with regards to the requirements for the program, we want to change that to permissive language to say may instead of shall. That will allow the department and ultimately schools to have the flexibility that they need. And defecting the date to July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote, please.
Voting on House Bill 1994, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Clark. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Moving on to HB 2267, DOE and ACs. Members, I'd like to defect the date to July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 2267, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Clark. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 1562, ELB membership, P20 member. Would like to pass this effective the date to July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1562, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendment. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Clark. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 1939, EOE and increase operational capacity. Would like to blank out the dollar amount sliding it into the committee report, effective the date July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 1939, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Clark. Are there any noes? Any reservations? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Members, HB 1940, Child Care Worker Subsidy Pilot Program, amending the language throughout the bill to say a early learning special fund as opposed to the Hawaii Early Childhood Special Fund. I would also like to change the subsidy amount from $17 to $18 an hour. Technical non-substantive changes and effective the date July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1940, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Clark. Are there any reservations? Noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 1999, PLD appropriations. Typically, I should have concurred with the Chair of Human Services. I did not do that, but for now, we will move this bill out. Effective the date to July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 1999, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Clark. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Apologies, Chair Amani. I will touch bases with you to see if you still concur. Moving on to HB 2000, SFA and preschool facilities. This is another appropriations bill. I would like to defect the date to July 1st, 2050. Questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair for the vote.
Voting on House Bill 2000, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye, noting the excused absence of Representative Clark. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. Moving on to HB 1834, HT1 Strong Student Grant Pilot Program. Members, I would like to defect the effective date to July 1st, 2005-1. Comments, concerns? Vice Chair.
Voting on House Bill 1834, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. But with reservations, noting the excused absence of Representative Clark. Are there any reservations? Any noes? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Adjourned.